The envelope arrives every August, but most Floridians throw it out by September, and that habit is expensive. Tonight I am walking you through the page inside it, line by line. The 5 numbers that matter. Why your neighbor with the bigger house legally pays half your bill, and the one deadline that costs people real money every year. The page is called the Trim Notice, and it is the only place your county will ever show you its arithmetic. What does the county know that the homeowner does not? Read on, because the answer is a formula and not a secret. My name is Roy Baker. I sell real estate in Florida, and unlike most people who explain this document, I read the county's version of it, not the headline about it. Remember, I have sat with buyers at a kitchen table the week after they threw the notice away, and I can tell you exactly what that mistake costs, because it is on the page in dollars. Before we go anywhere, do one thing for me in the comments that costs nothing. Tell me your county and roughly what you paid in property tax last year. Just those 2 things. I ask because I have read through 1,000 comments on this subject, and everybody is furious, but almost nobody knows what anybody else is paying. Homeowners in Citrus County paying a little over $1,200. Homeowners out in Lakewood Ranch paying over $12. Same state, same year. So consider this your invitation. Put your 2 numbers in the comments, and we will all find out together. Now let me take the air out of my own title before we go further. This is not a video about taxes being too high, and it is not a rant. Florida's property tax system is unusual, and unusual means nobody explains it, and unexplained means you pay more than you have to. There is nothing to buy from me here. What there is arithmetic, and here is the piece most people have never been told. Your neighbor is not cheating, and the county is not losing money. Except here is the piece that changes how you read the page. The difference between your bill and theirs is a formula. The formula has a name, and once you see the name, the whole page makes sense. Number 1. What the Trim Notice actually is. TRIM stands for Truth in Millage, and the state requires the property appraiser to mail it to every property owner in August, every year, whether you want it or not. It is not a bill. I want to say that plainly, because people see a dollar figure and either panic or ignore it. Remember the sequence, because it matters. The Trim Notice in August is the proposal. The public hearings in September are the argument. The tax collector's bill in November is the invoice. The real money moves in November, but the decisions are made in August and September, and by the time most people open the envelope, half the process is already over. But consider what the notice physically contains, because this is where people get lost. Page 1 is the letter from your county property appraiser, and it always reads like it was written by a very cautious attorney. Page 2 is the table, and the table has 5 numbers that matter: your market value, your assessed value, your exemptions, your taxable value, and then the millage rates each taxing authority wants to charge. Which means the notice is really 2 documents stapled together. A statement of what your property is worth, and an invitation to a set of public meetings about what it will be taxed. Except here is the part that should genuinely bother you. The state designed this page so that a homeowner could participate, and then let the counties print it in a font size that guarantees nobody does. Throw out the envelope, and you have thrown out the invitation. Number 2, the 4 values, and why they are not the same number. This is the paragraph the county should print in bold and does not. Market value is what the appraiser believes your house would have sold for on the 1st of January, and that date is not a detail. The appraiser is legally valuing the property as it stood on that day, using sales from around that window, which means the pool screen you added in April shows up a full cycle later. Remember that lag when you read the number, because half the arguments I hear are people fighting last year's facts with this year's kitchen. Assessed value is market value after the cap, and for a homesteaded property the cap says your assessed value can rise no more than 3% a year, no matter what the market does. Exemptions come off the assessed value, and taxable value is what remains. And that is the number the millage is multiplied against. Except the cap has a hole in it that catches renovators. New construction and additions are not capped. A new roof does not count, but a new room, a pool, a converted garage, all of that gets added to assessed value at market in one step, and the 3% cap only protects what was already there. So the couple who added 400 square feet and watched the assessment jump should know the jump was legal, and half of it anyway. So the same house can carry a market value of $400,000, an assessed value of $280, and a taxable value of $255. But wait, because all 3 numbers are correct at the same time, and that is not a trick, it is the design. Let me show you how that spread actually builds, because the spread is the whole story. A house bought in 2012 for $180,000 has seen its market value more than double, but the cap only allowed the assessed value to crawl 3% a year, which compounds to roughly 55% over those years. Now look at what actually happened there. The market did the doubling, the cap did the crawling, and the gap between them is the protection. The truth is, most disputes I see come from a homeowner reading the market value line and assuming it is the bill's basis. It is not. And here's the sentence worth remembering. The market sets your market value, the cap sets your assessed value, and the formula, not the appraiser's mood, sets your bill. Which means the question is never whether the appraiser likes you, it is whether each of the four numbers was built correctly. And here is the 10-second check I give every client. Put your market value and your assessed value side by side on the notice. But if the two numbers are close, your cap is young and protecting you little. If the market number towers over the assessed one, the cap has been working for years, and that gap is the quiet annual discount you would lose by moving without portability. The gap, not the bill, is the number to watch. Number 3. Save our homes. And this is the answer to the title's question. Why does your neighbor pay less? Because of a constitutional amendment from 1992 called Save Our Homes, and it does one thing. It caps the annual increase in assessed value on homesteaded property at 3%. Notice what that quietly builds over time. Your neighbor bought in 2004 for $140,000. The market has tripled since then, but the assessed value could only crawl 3% a year, so it now sits somewhere near $260,000. You bought the identical house next door last year for $400,000, and your assessed value starts at $400,000 because the cap belongs to the owner, not to the house. Which means the difference between the two bills was decided the day each of you signed, not by anyone's politics. Same house, same street, same millage, and the formula hands your neighbor a tax bill near half of yours. I once had a buyer stand in a driveway in Pasco County and ask me, point blank, whether the neighbor was connected. Nobody was connected. The neighbor was just early, and the state rewards early. But before you get angry at the neighbor, remember the trade they made. They have been paying for 20 years while you are paying starting now, and the cap was the state's promise to them that staying put would not be punished. Turns out the promise worked so well that it created the exact confusion you are feeling in that driveway. The system is not secret. It is just never explained at the kitchen table, and that is what I am doing tonight. But know what resets the cap, because the cap is not forever by itself. Move out and rent the house, the homestead goes, and the clock unwinds. Sell, and the protection leaves with you, portable once and gone if unused. Stay, and there is no expiry, and there are owners in this state whose assessed value is now a third of their market value, which is exactly what the driveway argument is really about. Number 4. Portability, the most valuable sentence on the page for anyone thinking of moving. Here is what nobody tells sellers. You can take part of your Save Our Homes protection with you. The rule is called portability, and it lets you transfer the difference between your assessed and market values, up to $500,000 of it, to your next Florida homestead. Consider what that is worth in plain numbers. If your house has a market value of $500,000 and an assessed value of $300,000, you are carrying $200,000 of sheltered value, and portability lets that shelter move with you to the next house, instead of resetting to zero. Without it, the new house starts taxed at full market. With it, the new house starts taxed as if $200,000 of it did not exist. On a typical millage, that difference is 4 figures a year, every year, for as long as you own it. The catch? You have to file for it, and the window is tight. The general rule is 2 years to establish the new homestead and apply, and people who miss it restart at full market value on the new house. The form itself is 1 page, and it is free. But here's the part that stays with me. In 20 years of closings, I have watched hundreds of sellers leave 5 figures of protection on the table, purely because nobody told them the protection was portable. A widow I worked with was downsizing to be near her daughter in Polk County, and the difference on her file was 11 years of a cap, and the 1-page form carried it across the county line intact. Consider this me telling you. Number 5. The exemptions line. And this is where the notice quietly overcharges people. Everyone knows the standard homestead exemption knocks $25,000 off taxable value, plus a second $25,000 that applies to everything except school taxes. But the line items most often missed are the ones that stack on top, and the county applies what you file, not what you deserve. Surviving spouses get an additional $500, and a surviving spouse of a veteran inherits the veteran's exemption, which is worth far more if the service-connected disability rating was high. Seniors 65 and older with income under roughly $36,000 can claim an additional $50,000, but only in the counties that adopted it, and about half of them have. Veterans with a service-connected disability rating qualify for an additional $5,000 at 10%, scaling up with the rating, and a total and permanent service-connected disability connects to a full exemption, house and land, forever. Blind residents and first responders injured on duty. Each category has its own line on the page and its own form in the appraiser's office. And every one of them requires a separate filing with a separate deadline. Except here is the arithmetic that makes this section worth your Saturday. An additional $50,000 senior exemption at a 2% effective millage is $1,000 a year, and a missed veteran tier can be several times that. Remember the filing deadline too, because exemptions carry one of the few hard dates in this system. The homestead exemption application closes on the 1st of March, and the senior and veteran add-ons ride their own paperwork windows. File once, and most renew automatically, but miss the first filing, and the county keeps your money with perfect courtesy for another year. And consider the years, because the form is filed once, but the money repeats. Now multiply by the number of years you will own the house. So the Saturday action is this. Pull your trim notice, find the exemptions line, and compare it against that list. And here's why the 10 minutes matters. Because if your situation matches a category, and the line does not show it, you have found money, and the fix is a form. But wait, because the page holds one more trap, and it is the biggest one of all. Number 6. The deadlines, because the notice is mostly a calendar in disguise. This is the part people throw away. Somewhere on page 2, in a smaller font than the numbers, the trim notice lists 2 public hearings for each taxing authority: the county commission, the school board, the water management district, and the rest. Those hearings are where the millage rates are actually adopted, and the notice tells you the date, the time, and the address. But count the authorities on your own page, because this surprises everyone. There is rarely one tax rate. There are 5 to 8 of them stacked: the county commission, the school board, the water management district, the fire district, sometimes a hospital district, and a children's services council, and each one sets its own millage and holds its own hearings. Your bill is the sum of all their decisions, which means nobody at any single meeting controls your bill, and everybody at every meeting points at somebody else. The millage is where the real movement lives, and here's why. Every hearing revolves around a number called the rolled back rate, which is the rate that would collect exactly last year's revenue from this year's properties. Hold a public hearing at the rolled back rate, and it counts as no increase, no matter that your own bill still moved, because your assessed value did. Go a hair above it, and the law requires the word increase in the notice and the meetings. So when your county announces it kept taxes flat, remember the phrase is doing specific work. Flat means flat revenue for them, not a flat bill for you. Your capped assessed value protects you from the market, but it does not protect you from a millage increase, because 3% of a capped value still hurts when the rate climbs on top of it. A $280,000 assessed value at last year's rate and the same value after a rate bump are 2 different bills, and the cap will not save you from the second one. But there is a second deadline that matters more if you dispute the value itself. You have 25 days after the notice mails to petition the Value Adjustment Board itself, and that window closes whether you opened the envelope or not. The petition costs $15 in most counties. But what happens in the room is not what people expect, and it is better. Consider the room itself, because it is quieter than the word hearing suggests. You bring your evidence, recent comparable sales, or photos of condition problems, and you sit across from a special magistrate, usually a licensed appraiser, and here's the part nobody believes until they go. He rules on the value, not on whether you are a nice person. It turns out the room respects paper over charm every time. I sat in on one in Hillsborough, where the homeowner's entire case was 4 printed sales and a photo of a cracked slab, and the value came down $14,000 in 11 minutes, which is the best hourly rate anyone in that building earned that week. But remember what the room cannot do. It adjusts the value, not the millage, so if your quarrel is with the rate itself, the room for that is the September hearing with the elected board, and the currency there is showing up, not filing. Except even the hearing has a smaller cousin that most people skip. Remember, the appraiser's office itself takes informal calls and walk-ins in the weeks after the notice mails, and a calm conversation with a deputy appraiser, with your sales printed, resolves a remarkable share of disputes before anyone files anything. Free, no magistrate, no fee. And what happens in that first call is simpler than you fear. The deputy pulls your card, compares it against the recent sales on their own screen, and either explains the number or quietly corrects it, and both outcomes take 15 minutes. which means the cheapest 15 minutes in Florida property tax is a phone call. Consider what missing the window actually costs. Miss it, and your argument waits a full year, and a year of an overassessment on a $400,000 house is real money. Call it $1,500 to $2,000, which means the envelope you recycled was carrying a coupon worth more than most people's car payment. So the Saturday action, and I want you to actually do this one. Go find this year's notice, or bookmark the appraiser's site where it is published. Copy the 2 hearing dates into your calendar tonight, and if the value looks wrong, count the 25 days and file before the door shuts. If this walkthrough saved you an argument with an envelope, subscribe, because next week I am doing the insurance side of the same mailbox, the second number on your escrow statement that has been moving faster than your taxes, and almost nobody separates the two. Because the truth is, your neighbor's bill was never the mystery. The mystery was why nobody ever handed you the formula. So tell me in the comments, your county, and one number from your own notice, the taxable value line if you can find it, and I will tell you whether your cap is doing its job. I read every one, and next month I will open with the best of them. I am Roy Baker. Read the page before you recycle it, and put the hearing dates in your calendar before you go to bed.